Echo Park Bones by 10 Chapters Studio. Chapter 1, Foundations. The house on Lemoyne looked tired of pretending. Paint peeled in sheets, ivy clung like guilt, and the porch leaned as if listening for something it wished it hadn't heard. The morning air in Echo Park smelled like sunburnt grass and oil. Miles Harrington stood behind the yellow tape, hands in his coat pockets, watching a backhoe drip mud into a pit. He wasn't supposed to be here. He'd flown to L.A. chasing a New York art thief who had skipped East Coast extradition and supposedly vanished into the city's velvet shadows. But a detective named Ava Calder had called him before breakfast. "Your thief's name popped up near a body. Bring your badge or your conscience." The body turned out to be 3. Calder met him at the curb, black hair, steady eyes, a voice that could flatten small talk. "You're Harrington." "That's what my coffee says." "Good. I need a second set of eyes. We dug up something you'll appreciate." She led him to the trench. Inside the clay, 3 skeletons huddled like gossip that went bad. Between 2 rib cages sat an old Super 8 camera, cracked but intact. "The house was built in 28, last remodel in 77, Calder said. "Neighbors remember parties." Then silence. Miles crouched, studying the skulls. Whoever buried them did it carefully, no panic. The owner was a screenwriter, David Marlowe, wife named Carol. Both vanished in 77. Their son, Eddie, was a child actor on Sunny Days, ran reruns on Channel 13. "I remember that show," Miles said. "The kid with the yellow bike." "Right. And now a small shoe just surfaced next to those bones." A CSU tech lifted it gently from the dirt, a blue leather child's shoe, size maybe 4. The chatter around them dimmed. Calder exhaled slowly. "If that's Eddie, the city's about to lose its mind." Miles looked at the house above them. "People don't bury a family and keep living on top of them." "They do in this town," she said. The coroner arrived, zipped up what was left of the Marlows and tagged the evidence. Calder kept staring at the camera. It was wedged under the pelvis, still sealed. "You think it's got film?" "Only one way to find out." A tech cracked the latch open, careful as surgery. Inside sat a single film canister, dust-caked but unbroken. "Old stock," he murmured. "Kodachrome, could still hold images." Calder glanced at Miles. "There's a lab downtown that can develop it. You coming?" He shrugged. "My suspect can wait, Bones don't." They left the scene, passing a row of onlookers. Neighbors, a dog walker, a teenage kid on a skateboard who couldn't look away from the body bags. The city hummed, alive and indifferent. Inside Calder's unmarked car, the air conditioner wheezed out hot breath. She drove fast, the kind of fast that dared you to interrupt. "Funny thing," she said. "Your art thief Graham Lang used to host parties 2 blocks from that house. Some of those reels might show faces, you know." Miles stared out the window. "Lang likes cameras. They make him feel important." The drive downtown cut through cracked billboards and half-finished dreams. When they reached the lab, an old storefront that still smelled of chemicals, an elderly technician took the canister without a word. 40 minutes, he said. They waited in silence. Miles studied Calder, sharp, contained, restless. She was too calm for someone staring at ghosts. "You seem invested," he said. "My sister auditioned for Sunny Days once," she replied. "Didn't get the part, said the director gave her the creeps." The technician returned, holding a strip of film up to the light. The frames glimmered like trapped bees. "Some of it survived," he said. Miles leaned in. Grainy images flickered, an old Hollywood party, glasses raised, faces half lit by flashbulbs. Then a boy 8, maybe 9, turning toward the camera. His smile froze. His eyes widened. His lips formed one clear word. "Help." Calder's voice was barely a whisper. "That's Eddie Marlowe." Miles didn't answer. The next frames jumped, laughter dancing, someone in the corner just out of focus. A man with slick hair and a ring that caught every shard of light. He didn't need to say the name. Graham Lang had always known how to find the camera without looking at it. End of chapter. Chapter 2. The Boy on Film. The film lab went still when the reel ended. Even the machines held their breath. Calder stared at the final frame, Eddie Marlowe's terrified face, while the technician slid the strip into a sleeve. "I'll make a print," he said softly. "But you didn't get this from me." Outside, the heat hit like a spotlight. Calder moved fast toward her car. Miles followed, jacket over his arm. "You think the kid survived?" he asked. "I think the camera outlived him," she said. She drove through Hollywood's bleached streets, billboards peeling, palm trees sweating under smog. Miles watched her knuckles whiten on the wheel. "Lang was at that party," he said finally. "I'd bet on it." "Good thing you're not a gambling man," she replied. "How well do you know him?" "Well enough to know he doesn't show up anywhere unless there's money, leverage, or someone he can use." Calder turned off Sunset into a low tan building that sagged under its own bureaucracy. Los Angeles County Archives. Inside, the air smelled of dust and resignation. Calder found the Marlowe file thin, faded, stamped closed. Insufficient evidence. "The neighbor reported them missing," she said. "Car gone, bills unpaid. LAPD wrote it up as a runaway family." Miles studied the attached photo, the parents smiling stiffly, and Eddie between them clutching a yellow bike. A flash of pure 1970s innocence, frozen before it curdled. "The studio cancelled Sunny Days 2 weeks later," Calder said. Miles flipped another page. "Who ended up with the house?" She located the deed. "Transferred in '78 to a shell company," she met his eyes, "signed by Graham Lang." Miles let out a low whistle. He didn't just bury the past, he bought the land on top of it. Lang's first big film was the same year, she added. Sunny Days, the movie, never released. Vanished after one test screening. Miles frowned. A man like Lang doesn't hide film unless it hides him. They left the archive and drove toward Vine. The city shimmered in the heat, all mirage and denial. Calder parked outside a cracked apartment complex. "Lydia Voss lives here," she said. "Eddie's on-screen sister." The buzzer crackled. A smoky voice answered, "If you're selling salvation, I already bought it twice." "LAPD," Calder said. "Just a few questions." A pause, then a click. Lydia opened the door with a cigarette between 2 fingers and a face that remembered being famous. "Eddie Marlowe," Calder said gently. "You knew him." "Everybody knew him," Lydia replied. "Golden kid, then one day gone, poof." Miles showed her the photo of Eddie from the film. "You've seen this?" The color drained from her face. "Where did you—" "Buried under his parents' house," Calder said. Lydia stared at the picture for a long beat, then whispered, "That night wasn't supposed to be filmed. It was a rap party Lang's idea. Booze, coke, half the cast. Eddie's mom begged him to stay upstairs." "What happened?" Her eyes drifted toward the window. "Hollywood happened. Nobody protected kids back then. Eddie saw something he shouldn't have." Miles leaned forward. "You were there?" "I left before midnight. Next morning they said the Marlowes went to Palm Springs. Lang told us not to ask questions, said it would ruin our careers." "Did he threaten you?" Lydia laughed once, bitter and dry. "He didn't have to. He owned the reels. He owned us." "Where's Lang now?" "Producing something he calls art. Still loves cameras." She studied Miles. "You're not LAPD." "No." "Good. The cops buried this once already. Don't let them do it again." She closed the door. The click sounded like a period on a confession. Back in the car, Calder stared through the windshield. "She's terrified." "She should be," Miles said. "Lang doesn't erase people, he edits them." They drove in silence, the afternoon light washing the city flat and gold. Calder's phone rang. She listened, her expression tightening. "That was the coroner," she said. "Prelims in. Both adults died from blunt trauma, not bullets." Miles nodded slowly. "And the child?" "They found something else. 4th set of fingerprints on the camera, small, a child's." Miles looked out at the skyline, the sun sinking behind it like an old lie. "Then maybe Eddie didn't film the murder," he said quietly. Calder turned to him. "Then what did he film?" He met her eyes. "Maybe he filmed what came next." End of chapter. Chapter 3. The Party Reel. The sun was melting into the horizon when Calder parked outside the LAPD lab. She pulled a brown envelope from the passenger seat, tapped it twice against her knee, then handed it to Miles. "The frames we developed," she said. "There's more." Inside were glossy stills, blown up from the recovered reel. Miles spread them across the dashboard, grainy figures under party lights, champagne flutes raised, and in the corner, a man whose face refused to commit to the light. Graham Lang, if you knew where to look. Calder leaned closer. "You can see him." "I can smell his cologne," Miles said. He was there. She started the car again. "Lang owns a studio lot off Melrose. I pulled a permit technically. We're there on a follow-up about stolen art." "Technically," Miles echoed. The lot was a crumbling patch of Hollywood's past. Rusted gates, peeling murals, the ghosts of movie stars painted over by time. A security guard let them through after Calder flashed her badge. Lang's office sat in the corner of a warehouse, glass walls overlooking a soundstage draped in velvet curtains. He was waiting, tan as a dollar bill and twice as smug. "Detective Calder," he said, rising from his desk. "And Miles Harrington, right? I thought you preferred the East Coast humidity." Miles smiled without warmth. "It followed me here." Lang motioned to the seats. "To what do I owe this reunion?" Calder dropped a still photo onto his desk. Eddie's frozen face. "Recognize him?" Lang's smile faltered for half a beat, then returned. "That's from the show. God, we were all so young." "That's not a studio frame," Miles said. "It's from a private reel found buried under the Marlowe house with their bones." Lang's jaw flexed once. "You're mistaken." "Am I?" Calder asked. "Because your signature's on the deed transfer. You bought the property right after they vanished." He laughed softly. "I buy lots of properties. Some come with termites, some with rumors." Miles studied him. "And some with graves." Lang poured himself a drink, ignoring the accusation. "Detective, you're dredging up old gossip. I had nothing to do with that tragedy. If you dig deep enough into this town, you'll find bodies under everything: careers, reputations, maybe even your department." Calder stood. "If that's a threat, make it clearer for the tape." He raised his glass. "Just an observation. Good luck with your art thief." Outside, the night had cooled, but the air still felt like it was watching. Calder stopped halfway to the car. "He's hiding something." "He's hiding everything," Miles said. "But he slipped. He knew the bones were the Marlowes before we told him." Calder frowned. "You're right, he did." They got into the car. The city glowed around them, neon, traffic, and lies stitched together. Miles watched the reflection of Lang's office in the rearview mirror shrink to nothing. "Where to now?" Calder asked. "Back to the house," he said. "I want another look at what they missed." Echo Park at night was quieter, but not calm. The tape fluttered in the wind like an afterthought. The pit had been filled and tarped, but the house loomed dark against the skyline. Miles climbed the porch steps and listened. The soft creak of wood, the buzz of a distant streetlight, the low hum of the city dreaming. Inside, dust hung like smoke. He moved room to room, flashlight slicing through the dark. The living room had been gutted, walls stripped, floorboards uneven. Something about the pattern bothered him, new nails beside old holes. He crouched near the corner where the wall met the floor. There, almost invisible under paint, a faint chalk mark, half a sun, drawn by a child's hand. He called out softly, "Calder, get in here." She stepped beside him. "What is it?" "Eddie's mark," he said. "The show logo, half a sun. The kid signed his own house." She knelt, tracing the outline. "Could mean nothing. Or it means he was alive when this was drawn. Maybe even after the murders." Calder looked around. "You think someone kept him here? Or he came back?" She stood uneasy. "Whoever killed his parents buried the camera but left this. Why?" Miles stared at the chalk mark. "Because they wanted him remembered but not found." He straightened, scanning the room one more time. A faint glint caught his eye near the baseboard, a strip of rusted film canister, wedged deep. He pried it loose, careful not to break it. "This wasn't in the first search," he said. Calder squinted. "Another reel?" He nodded. "Smaller, like a child's home movie. They sealed it in an evidence bag." As they stepped outside, thunder rumbled far off, rare for LA, but fitting. Calder glanced at the tarp-covered pit. If this one plays, what do you think we'll see? Miles looked at the house, its windows dark and blank. Maybe not what happened that night, he said. Maybe what came after. A coyote howled somewhere in the hills. The sound carried long and lonely. Calder zipped up her jacket. We'll run it first thing in the morning. Miles nodded, but he didn't move. He kept staring at the porch, the chalk sun, and the echo it left behind. The city hummed around them, alive, indifferent, already forgetting. End of chapter. Chapter 4, The Second Reel. The second reel arrived at the LAPD lab just after sunrise. The city outside was still yawning. Buses groaning awake, the sky half coffee, half bruise. Miles and Calder stood shoulder to shoulder while the technician loaded the canister into the projector. Shorter reel, he said. Maybe a few minutes of footage, tops, looks homemade. The lights dimmed. The wall flickered to life in shades of ghostly amber. A living room appeared. Same wallpaper as the Marlowe house. Same half-sun chalk mark on the corner. Someone was filming shakily, at child height. A woman, Carol Marlowe, walked into frame, smiling nervously, holding a cake with a single candle. "Come on, Eddie, blow it out," she said. The camera panned to a boy 8 or 9, Eddie. He blew out the candle, laughter echoing, then glanced off screen. His expression froze, the way a child looks when he sees something the adults pretend isn't there. The film crackled. Then another voice, male, calm. "Keep filming, son." Miles felt his stomach tighten. The woman turned, startled. "David!" Static. The image jumped. The next frame showed the empty cake table. The boy's voice came faintly. "Mom?" Then nothing, black. The lights came up. No one spoke. "Could be fragments from another night," the technician said quietly. "But the voice—" Calder cut him off. "Make a clean digital copy. Seal the original." She turned to Miles. "You heard it too?" He nodded. That wasn't David Marlowe. "Lang," she said. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. They left the lab, sunlight hitting them like interrogation lamps. Calder lit a cigarette she didn't seem to want. If Lang was there the night the Marlowes died, and if he had the kid filming, then Eddie wasn't just a witness, Miles said. He was made to record it. They drove in silence until Calder pulled over by a diner on Alvarado. She ordered black coffee and eggs, never looking at the menu. Miles stirred his own cup, watching the steam twist. "You ever think about what this city runs on?" he asked. "Dreams and denials? Close. Film. Everyone here's editing something past truth themselves." She smirked faintly. "You should teach philosophy." "I did once," he said. "Didn't pay as well as catching liars." The waitress refilled their cups, glancing between them like she sensed unfinished business. Calder leaned in. "If Eddie filmed his parents' deaths, Lang's kept that tape, maybe used it." Miles raised an eyebrow. "Used it how?" She tapped the table. "Leverage, control. He built his career on what people couldn't afford to see." Miles thought of Lydia's trembling hands, the film canister in the dirt, Lang's smooth denial. If he has the original footage, it's not sitting in his office. Then where? Somewhere only he trusts. She frowned. Meaning? Private vaults, safety boxes, or... He hesitated. "A collector. Someone like my fugitive art thief." Calder froze mid-sip. "You think Lang sold it? I think he traded it. People like him don't destroy evidence, they monetize it." By afternoon they were parked outside a mansion in the Hollywood Hills Lang's home. The place was all glass and arrogance, reflecting the city like a trophy. "Not exactly a subtle man," Miles said. Calder checked her watch. "He's got a charity event downtown tonight. If we're lucky, his housekeeper's more honest than her boss." They rang the bell. A middle-aged woman answered, wary but polite. "Mr. Lang isn't home." Calder showed her badge. "We're not here for him, just a few questions." The woman hesitated, then let them in. The house smelled of citrus and expensive gilt. Miles wandered toward the study. On one wall, rows of framed photos, Lang, with politicians, actors, and a few too many child stars. He stopped at one. The Sunny Days cast, 1976. Eddie front and center, Lang's hand resting on his shoulder. Calder came up beside him. "God," she muttered, "he looks like he owns the kid." He probably thought he did. Miles scanned the desk paperweight half-empty whiskey glass, a small brass key. He pocketed it quietly. In the corner, an antique film projector sat on a pedestal, polished like an altar. Calder crouched beside it. "No film loaded." "He doesn't keep the good stuff at home," Miles said. The housekeeper reappeared. "You should go. He doesn't like uninvited guests." Calder nodded, slipping her card into the woman's hand. "If you ever feel unsafe, call me." Outside, the city sprawled beneath them, pretending innocence. Miles looked back at the house. "He's got the missing reel, Calder. I can feel it. Then we need proof." He turned toward her, eyes narrowing. Maybe the boy filmed it, but someone else finished the movie. That night, as Miles walked back to his motel, he couldn't shake the image of Eddie behind the camera, hands trembling, obeying that calm, adult voice. He paused by the window. Across the street, a TV flickered in someone's room, an old rerun of Sunny Days. Eddie rode his yellow bike down a sunlit street, waving to the camera. Miles watched until the credits rolled. Created by Graham Lang. He shut off the light. Sleep didn't come. End of chapter. Chapter 5, The Missing Frames. The next morning broke hard and colorless. Miles woke before the alarm, the city already buzzing like a power line outside his motel window. He shaved with cold water, drank bitter coffee, and called Calder before sunrise. "Meet me at the precinct," she said. "We've got movement." When he arrived, she was hunched over a light box, a half-eaten muffin beside the evidence bag from Lang's house. The brass key Miles had lifted now lay under glass. "Belongs to a storage unit," she said. "Burbank. Registered to one of Lang's shell companies." Miles nodded. He'd never risk keeping that reel in his house. Calder grabbed her jacket. "Let's go fishing." The facility sat off a quiet industrial road behind a taco truck and a billboard for teeth whitening. The clerk barely looked up as Calder flashed her badge. "Unit 47B," she said. The lock clicked open like it had been waiting. Dust rolled out in slow waves. Inside rows of film canisters, boxes labeled in neat handwriting, Sunny Days, Screen Tests, Rap Party 77. Calder exhaled. "Got him." Miles pulled one canister free. Half the city's sins probably fit in here. They carried the boxes to a small office and ran one reel through a portable viewer. Flicker. Hiss. A familiar living room appeared. The Marlowe house again, but brighter, cleaner, before everything turned rotten. Eddie sat at the piano, plunking a few clumsy notes. Carol Marlowe entered, smiling for the camera. "Play something for Mr. Lang," she said. The lens tilted. A man's voice answered, warm, coaxing. "You're a natural, Eddie. Keep looking at the camera." The frame jolted David Marlowe stepping into view, glassy-eyed, jaw tight. "Stop filming him," he snapped. The voice answered softly, "Relax, David. It's for the archives." Then static swallowed the sound. Calder froze. That was Lang's voice. "Yeah," Miles said quietly, "and that was a fight he didn't plan to record." The film jumped again. Party lights, clinking glasses. The same night as the other reel. The camera jerked violently. Eddie was running. Through the shaking lens, Miles caught a glimpse of the kitchen, his mother arguing with someone off-frame. The sound cut in, sharp and awful. A crash, then silence. Then, the film sputtered to its end. Neither of them spoke. Calder rubbed her eyes. "He filmed there last night, Miles, then buried it. Or someone did it for him," he said. She looked at him sharply. "You think the kid—" "I think Eddie filmed part of it. But someone else finished the scene." Calder sealed the reel. "We'll need a warrant before we take more. I'll push it through today." They stepped into the sunlight. The city was already too bright, too loud. Miles lit a cigarette and stared at the rows of units. "You ever notice how killers love to label things neatly?" Calder gave a tired smile. "Control freaks, they want the chaos to stay where they left it." He nodded. "Until someone digs it up." By late afternoon, they were back at the precinct. Calder was on the phone with the DA when a uniformed officer approached Miles. "Call for you. Guy says his name's Graham Lang." Miles took the receiver. "Lang." "Miles," the voice purred. "I hear you've been in my attic." "Your landlord's pretty talkative." Lang chuckled. "Be careful with old film. It breaks easy. So do careers." "You should come in and clear this up," Miles said. "I'd rather screen something for you first. Tonight, 9 p.m., Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Bring your detective friend." Then the line went dead. Calder hung up, eyes narrowing. What did he say? "He's hosting a show." "Great," she muttered. "The kind with popcorn or handcuffs?" Miles stubbed out his cigarette, knowing Lang both. The sun dropped fast over the city, bleeding through the smog. They drove through it in silence, the radio off, their thoughts louder than traffic. Hollywood Forever was half empty when they arrived. The screen was already up for some art house midnight showing, couples sprawled on blankets, unaware of the two detectives blending into the shadows near the back. At exactly 9, the projector flickered on. But the film wasn't the one on the program. The image was shaky inside a house, candlelight, the same wallpaper. Miles felt his stomach twist. It was the Marlowe living room again. A child's voice whispered, "I didn't mean to." Then another voice, soft and male, "Keep filming, Eddie, just finish it." The audience murmured, confused, thinking it part of the performance. Calder's face went pale. "He's playing it for everyone." On screen, a woman screamed. The camera tumbled sideways. A man's silhouette loomed over her. Then the picture cut to black. The crowd started clapping, thinking it was experimental art. Lang's voice came through the speakers, calm and smiling. "To all our old friends, may we never forget how the story ends." Miles was already moving toward the projector booth, but by the time they reached it, the room was empty. The reel still spun, clicking softly at the end of its film. Lang was gone. End of chapter. Chapter 6, The Vanishing Act. By morning, Lang's stunt was all over the city. "Murder on the silver screen," one headline read. The press called it a lost film performance. LAPD called it obstruction. Miles called it arrogance. He hadn't slept. Neither had Calder. They met outside the precinct, both looking like they'd been run through the same storm. "He planned that screening," she said, tossing him a paper. "The projector was wired. Someone triggered it remotely. He wanted us to chase ghosts." "Lang doesn't run," Miles said. "He directs." She gave him a look. "You sound almost impressed." "Just experienced." Her phone rang. She listened for 10 seconds, then cursed under her breath. Lang's car was found near Mulholland, empty. Suicide note? More like a script, typed, signed, and pretentious as hell. They drove up the canyon road, morning haze clinging to the hills. Lang's Mercedes sat parked by the overlook, door open, radio still playing smooth jazz. The seat was empty, but the keys were in the ignition. A note lay on the dashboard. Calder read it aloud. "Every ending deserves an audience." Miles scanned the ground. No blood, no drag marks, no body. "He's alive. He wants us to think otherwise." They stepped closer to the edge. Below, the city stretched wide and glittering, as if mocking the idea of truth. "He knows we'll find him," Miles said. Calder slipped the note into an evidence bag. "Then we better make it quick." Back at the station, the reels were secured under lock and chain. The DA wanted them sealed until a warrant cleared their use. But Miles had other plans. He found a small screening room in the basement, the kind used for lineups and forgotten evidence reviews. Calder joined him, 2 coffees in hand. "You're breaking a few rules." He took 1 cup. "You brought caffeine, that's consent." They ran the second half of the reel Lang had screened. The film jumped static fragments and finally, A figure standing in front of a mirror. Eddie Marlowe, older now, maybe 14. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, still filming. Jesus, Calder whispered. That's years after the murders. The boy raised the camera toward his reflection. Behind him, someone's shadow crossed the frame. Lang's voice, calm and patronizing. That's good, Eddie. Keep going. The boy said, I don't want to anymore. The screen went black. Calder's voice was quiet. He didn't kill the boy. No, Miles said. He kept him. She looked at him sharply. For how long? Long enough to make him disappear twice. They stared at the blank wall, the hum of the projector filling the silence. Miles ran a hand through his hair. If Eddie lived, he's out there under another name. Calder nodded slowly. We pull records of child actors from that time. Anyone who changed names disappeared or reappeared under new credits. He looked at her. You're thinking what I'm thinking. E.J. Vale, she said. The name hung between them. A successful indie director who'd burst onto the scene in the late 80s, quiet, talented, camera-shy. Married to Margot Vale. Miles remembered reading about him. His films are about trauma, children, lost memory. Guess where his first film premiered? Calder said. Lang's studio. They drove straight to the address on Vale's last known license, a glass and brick house in Laurel Canyon, halfway swallowed by vines. Margot Vale opened the door before they knocked. She was graceful, poised, but her eyes darted too much. Can I help you? Detective Calder, LAPD, this is Miles Harrington. We'd like to speak to your husband. She smiled tightly. E.J. is overseas, shooting in Prague. Miles glanced past her. Mind if we come in? I do, actually. Calder held out a still photo, the boy from the reel. Recognize him? Margot hesitated, just a heartbeat too long. No. Miles watched her closely. You should, you married him. She blinked once, but her tone stayed even. You're mistaken. Calder slipped her card onto the doorframe. Have him call us when he's back. They turned to leave. Miles stopped at the end of the walkway and looked back. Through the glass wall he saw Margot pick up the phone, not to call anyone, but to listen. She's warning him, he said. Let her, Calder replied. It'll make him nervous. Miles nodded, but unease crawled under his skin. Nervous people make mistakes, but the really dangerous ones turn them into art. That night Calder called. We traced Vale's passport, no recent travel. He never left L.A. Miles stared at the phone long after she hung up. Outside, a police siren wailed, then faded. Somewhere in the city, another projector spun to life. End of chapter. Chapter 7, The Director's Cut. Calder's warrant came through by noon. By 2, they were inside E.J. Vale's editing studio, a dim bunker of humming machines, film reels, and stale coffee. An editor in a Dinosaur Jr. shirt tried blocking the door. E.J.'s not here. Good, Calder said, flashing the paper. We're not here for his autograph. Inside the small cutting room, still frames covered the wall, children looking straight into the camera, faces caught between smiles and fear. In one corner hung a publicity photo from Sunny Days, 1976. Eddie Marlowe at the center. A faint scar sliced through his left eyebrow. Calder grabbed a more recent shot of Vale, the same scar. That's him, she said quietly. Different name, same eyes, Miles replied. He didn't disappear, he rebranded. The young editor shifted uneasily. E.J. doesn't like mirrors, he murmured. Where is he? Calder asked. Said he needed quiet light, probably the old train bridge by the river. He films there when he wants to think. They stepped back into the heat. On the car's hood sat a small brown parcel. No label, just 2 words written in neat block letters. For Miles. Inside was a VHS tape and a Polaroid of the Marlowe living room. On the back, every cut is a mercy. Lang? Calder asked. Miles shook his head. Lang's handwriting looks like a ransom note. This is cleaner. They played the tape at the precinct. Static. Then the Marlowe living room, same wallpaper, same light. A boy, older Eddie, sat cross-legged on the floor, a camera in his lap. A woman's voice off-screen. "Tell me what you remember." "I remember the party," he said softly. "The noise the kind grown-ups make when they're pretending not to fight." The image jolted. The same voice whispered, "You're safe now, say what you need to." Eddie stared into the lens. "I did what he told me. I filmed." "Who told you?" His mouth moved, but the sound warped into static. The screen cut to black. A title card flickered. The director's cut. Then E.J. Vale appeared, older, hollow-eyed, staring into the camera. "If this is ever screened," he said, "understand it isn't confession. It's continuity." The tape ended with a thud. Calder crossed her arms. That voice wasn't his mother's. "And not Lang's either," Miles said. He flipped the Polaroid. "Every cut is a mercy. That sounds like someone who learned how to hide pain neatly." An officer entered. "DMV pulled a record. Vale's identity starts in 88. Before that, sealed juvenile file under initials EM, guardian listed as child of Officer DeVos." "Someone in the department protected him," Calder said. Miles muttered, "Taught him to disappear." They found Vale by sunset, just as the heat turned metallic. He was under the old bridge by the river, camera on a tripod, filming the light on water. He didn't flinch when they approached. Up close, the scar was unmistakable. "Eddie," Miles said. Vale looked at him calmly. "People call me EJ. Calder stepped forward. "We saw the tapes." He nodded. "Everyone sees what they can survive." "Lang kept you after your parents died," Miles said. Vale's eyes drifted to the river. He said memory is just editing with better lighting. "Where is he?" "Directors don't vanish," he said. "They screen off-site." Miles took a step closer. "Did you send me the tape?" "No, but I know who did." "Your wife," Calder said. Vale didn't answer. Silence did the talking for him. Calder pressed on. "You're protecting Lang?" He shook his head. "I'm protecting the edit. The rough cut's worse." Miles frowned. "What rough cut?" "The truth before it's cleaned up." Vale reached into his coat and handed over a small key stamped Vault 12. "If you want the third reel, follow the credits." "Where?" He looked toward downtown, orange light catching the water. "Where they keep the city's ghosts cold." "The coroner's vault," Calder said. Vale smiled faintly. "Close enough." He folded his tripod, slung the camera over his shoulder, and walked along the tracks. No hurry, no guilt, just a man leaving the frame. Calder stared after him. "You think we're ready for what's on that reel?" Miles pocketed the key. "We'd better be. We're already part of the movie." They stood by the river until the sun disappeared, the city flickering alive again, pretending not to hear what it had buried. End of chapter. Chapter 8. The Third Reel. The coroner's building sat crouched beneath the freeway, like something the city had forgotten to bury. Fluorescent lights hummed above polished floors that smelled faintly of bleach and regret. Calder flashed her badge to the night clerk. "Evidence vault," she said. "We're retrieving a sealed item, Vault 12. The clerk frowned. "After hours?" Miles smiled thinly. "We're allergic to daylight." They followed the clerk through a corridor lined with cold drawers until they reached a heavy steel door stenciled Vault 12, Restricted Access. Calder slid Vale's key into the lock. It turned smoothly, like it had been waiting. Inside were shelves stacked with boxes, film canisters, and tagged evidence from decades of crimes no one spoke about anymore. Dust shimmered in the beam of Calder's flashlight. She found it first a metal box marked, "Property of LAPD Marlowe Case 1977. Inside lay a single film reel, smaller than the others, wrapped in tissue. "Third reel," she said quietly. They carried it upstairs to the coroner's viewing room. The projector whirred to life with a nervous tremor. At first nothing but static and grain. Then the Marlowe living room again, this time from a fixed angle. Eddie sat on the couch, hands folded, eyes down. The sound crackled with age, a woman's voice steady, cold. "You did what you were told, didn't you, Eddie?" "Yes." "Tell me what you saw." The boy's voice wavered. "Dad yelled, Mom cried, then it was quiet." The camera panned slowly to the floor. A hand small trembling picked up the Super 8 camera seen in the first reel. The lens turned toward the woman behind the frame. She stepped forward. Her face entered the light. Margot Vale. Calder drew in a breath. His wife. On screen, the younger Margot crouched in front of the boy, her tone soothing. "You did so well, you don't have to remember anything else now." "I want Mom," Eddie said. "You'll have a new one," she replied. "Now look at me." She pressed her hand over the camera lens, and the film cut to black. The projector stopped. Silence filled the room like fog. Miles finally said, "She raised him." Calder nodded, pale. "Officer DeVos, her father. He must have taken Eddie into custody after the murders and let her adopt him under a new name. She raised him, married him, then kept him from remembering who killed his parents." Calder rubbed her temple. "And Lang?" "He directed the cover-up," Miles said, "but she wrote the script." They sealed the reel, leaving the air thick with unease. Outside, dawn leaked across the skyline. The freeway hummed overhead, indifferent to the secret unraveling below it. Calder leaned against the car. "So she's our killer?" Miles shook his head. "Not exactly. She didn't kill the parents, she cleaned it up. Maybe even saved Eddie. But she built the lie he's still living in." Calder frowned. "And Lang?" "He filmed the violence. She edited it out." She looked at him. Two sides of the same crime. He nodded slowly. He taught her how to control the image. She taught him how to disappear behind it. A phone buzzed Calder's. She answered, listened, then cursed softly. Lang just checked into the Beverly Monarch. Penthouse suite under a fake name. Miles flicked ash from his cigarette. "Then let's pay him a visit before someone writes the final scene." By the time they reached the hotel, the sun was climbing, the city's gold facade back in place. They moved through the marble lobby unnoticed, rode the elevator to the top, and stopped outside the penthouse. Calder raised her hand to knock. Then a muffled pop echoed from inside Small Final. Miles drew his gun, kicked the door. Lang sat slumped in a chair by the window, the view of the city wide and merciless. A gun rested on the carpet. Blood crept along the baseboard, tracing a slow curve like handwriting. On the table lay an envelope marked for the director. Inside, a single strip of film and a note in Lang's elegant scrawl. "You never learned the difference between truth and editing. Neither did I." Miles stared out the window. End of his story. Calder looked down at the film, but not Eddie's. They stood in the penthouse's bright silence, the city already roaring below, alive and unbothered. End of chapter. Chapter 9. The Rough Cut. The hotel room smelled of cordite and expensive failure. Lang's body was still warm when the coroner's team arrived, snapping photos while reporters buzzed outside like flies. Calder stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the city chew up another sinner. Miles picked up the small strip of film left in the envelope. It was only a few seconds long, but when he held it to the light, a single frame stood out, Margot Vale, smiling straight into the camera. "Not the look of a widow," he said. Calder leaned closer. "He left her center stage." "She's next," Miles said quietly. 2 hours later, they were parked across from the Vale's Laurel Canyon home. Curtains drawn, driveway empty. The place looked too still for morning. "You sure she's here?" Calder asked. "She hasn't left since last night. Someone dropped groceries at dawn," Miles said. "Habit keeps people predictable." Calder checked her weapon. "You think she killed him?" Miles shook his head. "Lang wouldn't hand her that much control, but she might have given him the reason." They crossed the yard quietly. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air was heavy with incense and old film. The living room walls were covered with framed posters, Vale's movies, all themes of loss and redemption. On the mantel sat the yellow bike from Sunny Days, freshly painted. "Souvenir," Calder muttered. From upstairs came a faint whirring sound, mechanical, rhythmic. They climbed the steps, guns drawn. The master bedroom door was open. Margot Vale sat on the floor beside a reel-to-reel projector, its light flickering across her face. She didn't flinch when they entered. "I wondered when you'd come," she said softly. Calder lowered her weapon slightly. "Turn it off, Margot." "I can't," she said. "It's all he left me." On the wall, the film played Eddie as a boy, smiling, waving at the camera, his parents beside him, alive and laughing. Home movie footage, too bright, too happy. Margot's voice trembled. "He never remembered this part. I thought maybe, if I kept showing him, it would come back." Miles stepped closer. "You took him after the murders, raised him, married him." Her eyes shone in the light. "I saved him. He was broken. You didn't see what Lang did to that child." "Then why hide it?" Calder asked. "Because healing needs illusion," she said. "Truth would have destroyed what was left of him." Miles crouched. "Lang killed his parents." She nodded. "David found out Lang was using Eddie in his film's private reels, ones that never aired. They fought. Lang struck him. Carol tried to stop it. Eddie saw everything. He ran, and I found him outside." "You were there," Miles said. Tears traced her face. "My father came later. He covered it up, said the boy needed a new life. So I gave him one." "By making him forget?" Calder asked. Margot turned toward the screen where the boy on film kept laughing. "Forget, remember, it's all editing." Miles noticed the camera beside her, loaded, blinking red. "You're filming this?" She smiled faintly. "Confession plays better when it's recorded." Calder took a step forward. "Margot, stop, it's over." "Not yet." She pressed a button. The reel jumped, switching scenes. Now it showed Eddie older, terrified, facing her. "Why did you lie?" he asked on screen. "Because I loved you," her voice replied. The projector sputtered, then stopped. Margot sat motionless, eyes fixed on the wall. Calder reached down and shut off the motor. "You'll have to come with us." Margot nodded, still staring at the blank screen. "He's watching, you know." "Eddie?" She looked up at Miles. "He wanted me to tell it right this time." They drove her in silence. Outside, the sky bled pink across the hills. Calder stared straight ahead. "You believe her?" Miles exhaled. "Every lie starts as truth someone loved too much. She's still protecting him, or protecting what he remembers of her." At the precinct, they handed Margot over to Holding. As the officer led her away, she turned to Miles. "When you watch the last reel," she said, "listen for the cut. That's where the truth starts." Later that night, alone in the evidence room, Miles opened the sealed envelope from the hotel again. The small strip of film shimmered under the light. He realized it wasn't a single image, but several frames layered over one another. He fed it through the viewer. Lang, Margot, and a child blurred together, overlapping, indistinguishable. It was a spliced 3 lives merged into one scene. Miles leaned back, the hum of the machine filling the silence. "The rough cut," he murmured, and for the first time in a long time he didn't know which part of the story was real. End of chapter. Chapter 10, Final Frame. The city woke slow and hungover, the way it always did after a scandal. Headlines screamed Hollywood nightmare unreals, while talk shows debated whether art could ever be innocent. Miles didn't read any of it. He was back in Echo Park, where the whole story had begun, watching the Marlowe house get torn down for real this time. The demolition crew worked in silence. Every hit of the excavator felt like punctuation. Calder joined him at the curb, 2 coffees in hand. "Judge signed off," she said. "Margot's being transferred to county. She's cooperating. She'll tell the story her way," Miles said. "They all do." "She said you'd come here," Calder added. He nodded toward the rubble. "Places remember things, even when people edit the ending." They stood there for a moment, the smell of dust and old wood filling the air. "So that's it?" she asked. "Case closed?" "Closed," he said, "not finished." Later, back at the precinct, the lab had one final delivery. A small unmarked package, no return address. Inside was a Super 8 reel and a single note in E.J. Vale's handwriting. Final cut. For the record. Calder looked at him. You sure you want to see this? Miles loaded the film. The screen flickered to life, grainy daylight. An open field. Eddie, now a man, stood in the frame holding a camera. Behind him, Margot walked toward him, hand on his shoulder. End of chapter and end of story. Please like and subscribe to support our channel, and to listen to more murder mysteries and investigative stories.